All right, can everyone hear me okay? Thumbs up. Yeah. So my name is Caitlin Hayes. I'm the wellness coordinator here at Samford, and I'm excited to be talking about this today, anxiety and abroad. I know a lot of people may find themselves having travel anxiety, even if you're studying abroad with Samford Global, or if you're just traveling for the holidays. This can be a really big part of your travel plan. So, trying to give us some tools and resources to manage that well and to be able to problem solve in the moment and show up as our best selves. I think that that's really important. Uh, there we are. So, if you don't mind scanning the QR code on your screen just to check in, so we have a final number for today. But some things that we'll go over during this next 50 minutes or so is we'll do a little bit of introductions. We'll talk about what anxiety is and how our bodies are responding and why we respond in that way. We'll talk about some signs and symptoms, so how to notice anxiety when it shows up in little ways versus big ways. We're going to talk about two different tools to help you manage it. One is growth mindset and one is resiliency. And then we'll have time for some questions and answers. But there will also be plenty of time for you guys to add some things into the chat and interact in that way as well. So I want it to be more of a conversation as we're here today. So, if anyone is a Disney fan, you've probably seen this film. It came out last summer. This is Inside Out 2. This is usually where I start talking about anxiety and just in general, in broad strokes, how we approach it. I think this movie does a great job approaching it. But wondering in the chat if any of you were to give anxiety a job, what would anxiety's job be? If you've seen this movie, it's totally okay to put the movie answer. But if you had other ideas of what you think anxiety is, and what would its job be? Awesome. Marley, I see you here protecting in a way, even if it's not always the best. Absolutely. Trying to keep you safe, yes. Fight or flight response, 100%. I think some of you have seen me before, and I'm so excited about that. So, yes, anxiety is a big part of how our body responds to things. And we'll talk more about its role here in just a minute, but those are exactly what comes to mind when we originally think of anxiety. When you think of traveling, let's think of these different steps to our traveling here. Anxiety when we're preparing to travel. So, what might we be nervous about when we're just thinking about traveling? What are some things that might go through our heads that maybe make us feel these same symptoms? Or some things you might worry about? Maybe it's a list that you're making. Planes, being away from home, yes. Airports, so big, so scary. I always feel like I have to find my gate before I do anything else. I know some people may even feel some anxiety if they don't know the people they're traveling with, trying to plan. If you're like me, you're going to over prepare and pack a ton of stuff and then have to haul it all the way to where you're going. Maybe you're worried about weather. And then we might have some other places where maybe our worries change. So thinking about the preparation. So if you're preparing now for the spring, your worries might be different than if you're leaving today for a trip for the holidays, right? So, what kind of things might you worry about if you had to leave today to maybe go across the country? I know I always wonder if I've prepared enough, if I've planned enough. Maybe I start over planning. Stress of traveling during the holidays, having that holiday traffic. Yes. Getting passports ready, getting your paperworks, packing. What responsibilities do I need to take care of? And what can wait until I get back? Yeah, getting all those chores done, not wanting to come back to dirty dishes in the sink or trash in your trash can, wanting all of that done. And that stuff piles up. And then we'll get to this one later, but also thinking about so you've packed, you've planned, you've traveled, and now you're there. And that's probably when we're speaking about study abroad, that's probably the thing that brings the most anxiety, um, is just being there and not knowing what to expect, not knowing if you're going to find the right connections, if you're going to enjoy being there. Maybe you're having to practice a secondary or a third language in a new place. So, some different things that you can think of and process, but understanding that as we're planning to travel, either for the holidays or for study abroad or for vacation, all of these things are things that our bodies are feeling and our brain is feeling. So, that is what we will get into next. Just like y'all said earlier, emotions have jobs, and anxiety's job is to protect us. It's to protect us from social, emotional, and professional harm, but it's also there to motivate us. I don't know about you guys, but sometimes I can't do something unless I have a deadline. I don't want to start that paper or that project. I don't want to do that thing. So I give myself a deadline to do it by. And that's the anxiety, wanting to meet that goal and using it in a positive way. Okay. So sometimes anxiety can be used not just to harm us, not just to slow us down, but also to push us forward to help us meet our goals and our own expectations for ourselves. And then I know some of y'all highlighted this earlier, so that's excellent. But anxiety also fuels our fight or flight response. So, your fight or flight response is your physiological response that anxiety is present. It lets us know that anxiety is in the room with us, okay? Because sometimes when we're feeling overwhelmed, especially if it's a day that's a lot of excitement, like a travel day or like going to a new place, your brain actually can't tell the difference between excitement and anxiety. It's the same neurons, it's the same hormones that release. So your body's still going to do that same thing. And we'll talk about those in just a minute. But it's the physiological response, it's how our body feels. And it's trying to get us to a safe place. That's the whole point. So, a fight response might mean that you get combative. Maybe people get snippy when they're stressed. Maybe they just want to distance themselves and be alone. And maybe they get really strict about their schedule. Like, hey, we have to do this, we have to do this. I'm trying to plan everything out and make sure this goes smoothly. So, all of those are just our brains and bodies trying to take control of a situation where we may not feel in control. And that happens a lot when we're traveling and just in new places and experiences. So, here are some signs and symptoms that might pop up when your body's in fight or flight response. Maybe your mind and your heart start to race. Maybe your stomach fills with butterflies. Maybe your mouth dries out or your palms get sweaty. Some other things that might happen as your symptoms elevate is you might think of an awkward situation over and over again in your head, wishing you had done it differently. Or preparing for an interaction that's making you really worried and trying to plan ahead so that you don't make a mistake. Checking those pockets, making sure you have everything along the way, making sure you have your passport and your boarding pass and all the things you're supposed to have. All of those are little anxieties that are trying to get us to the right place, trying to get us to where we want to be. You are so nervous to make a mistake that it's even hard to get started. Maybe that's something that you notice in the planning process. So if you're considering studying abroad, if you're considering making a big trip and you've never done it before, maybe it's that anxiety that's stopping you from even asking questions, that's stopping you from talking to people and saying like, hey, how did you do that? Did you enjoy it there? What were some great things? What were some things you wish you had known? It stops you from even having the conversation and just shuts down the possibility. It can also go as far as pushing you so much that you stop taking care of your physical body. So skipping meals, cutting back on sleep. Maybe this happens the day of travel, or maybe it happens when you're there and things are happening and you don't know how to solve it. Okay. So these are all signs that anxiety may be present, and some of them are very mild. Some of them are things that you might feel on a weekly basis. Okay. They just let us know that we're a little worried about something. But what we don't want to do is let them take over and run the show. All right. If you remember or have watched Inside Out 2, that's what anxiety does for Riley, is she tries to do everyone's job. And that's not what we have to do. You just have to do your job. So we'll talk a little bit more about that, but just making sure that we're leaving room for other emotions, that you're getting to feel excited, that you're getting to feel joy, that you're getting to feel maybe a little sadness or homesickness, but that you're getting to experience the whole thing step by step. And that's our goal. Okay. And if anxiety's all over the place, then we can't do anything else. So if you notice your symptoms of anxiety, these are some of the things that might fuel it. Okay. So these are taken from Jennifer Shannon's book, Don't Feed the Monkey Mind, where it talks about anxiety being a little creature on our shoulder. And the faster you interact with it, the faster you feed it, the faster it's going to respond each and every time. Okay. It's kind of like if you sit down at a picnic and a puppy walks up and you give it a snack. The next time you sit down at a picnic, he's going to come even faster to the picnic. Okay. Because he really wants the snack. So, what this book tells us is that anxiety feeds off these three lies. Okay. That they want us to react with a lot of energy. It fills up our bodies with all of that fight or flight response, and it's looking for a place to go. And if left unnoticed, it can get really big. And that's when we stop or stall out or even shut down. So, some things that might fuel your anxiety to be bigger is the lie of intolerance of uncertainty. So, thinking that you have to be 100% sure and 100% prepared, and maybe even 100% in control. Okay. The next one is the lie of perfection. I can't make a mistake. I have to do everything perfectly. All eyes are on me. And then the third lie of over responsibility. I'm responsible for everyone else's safety and happiness. I'm responsible for everything that I do and say and how other people take it. So these are the things that can make our anxiety so big that it's hard to manage. And these are the things that we'll really talk about how to process here today. So, our goal with all of these, what anxiety wants you to do is that it fills you up with this energy so that you're forced into action or you're forced into a reaction. Okay. It's like if you're walking on campus and you step out into the street and a car comes, you don't have to think about getting out of the way. Your body is going to move you out of the way of the car. But what we want to do is slow our minds down, slow our bodies down, and lead with an action that we're really proud of. We don't want to just react to a situation, but we want to create an action plan so that we know how to problem solve in a moment of stress. So, first off, these little mini tools to help. One of the biggest goals for slowing down is to really be present in the moment. So that's why you're going to see a lot of these are asking you to ground down into the right now. So grounding might look like listening to a favorite music, maybe listening to an audiobook or a podcast. Just being really, really present, noticing the ground underneath your feet, noticing how you feel, maybe going outside and feeling the wind on your face or the sun on your face, especially if you've been traveling all day and you've been inside airports. Going outside can be really helpful for that. Connecting to your breath. Maybe you're holding your breath because you're so stressed, or maybe you're breathing really quickly, but asking your breath to slow down to clear your mind, and that'll naturally lower your heart rate too. And then get moving. If you've been stuck inside all day and you feel yourself getting frustrated and overwhelmed, that's the anxiety fueling your muscles to move. So if you give it a healthy outlet to move, taking a walk, going up and down some stairs, maybe going on a walk or to the gym with a friend, all of those are great ways just to reset your whole nervous system so that you can make that action plan and not just react in the moment. Another thing that I like students to consider is picking out which of those lies that we're most likely to believe. So maybe it's the lie that you have to be 100% in control and 100% certain. Maybe it's one that says you can't make a mistake, or you have to know everything right now, or that you're responsible for way more than what your job is. So figuring out which of these lies is most common for you and then answering it with a truth. I'm a student, I'm supposed to be learning. I'm doing my best. I can give something a try and decide not to do it again. I can ask a friend for help. I can ask a teacher for help. All of these are good things to just ground you down and say, hey, I don't have to know all the answers right now. I don't have to grasp for control. I don't have to try and put everything on my own timeline. But I have the tools and resources to find an answer if I don't have it yet. So back to that slowing down, moving forward with an action that we're proud of and not just reacting right in the moment. And then this is the fun one, but celebrating tiny victories. So celebrating each time you get on a plane and make it closer and closer to your destination. Celebrating that each day you've done something really cool and different. Celebrating having the conversation that starts the process to get you there. And knowing, hey, I did something cool today. Talking about that with your loved ones and your friends. Maybe writing it down in a gratitude journal. I don't know, but take a moment to let yourself be grateful and proud of yourself that you're doing these steps that will get you closer. Celebrating that you've updated your passport and you're ready to go, right? Got to have all those little things. All right, so here is one of our two big tools that we're using today. So one of them is growth mindset. And a growth mindset is going to be really helpful when you travel because it's combating that lie that you have to know everything right now and that you're responsible for so much more. Um, this image is from Carol Dweck's research. She's a psychology professor at Stanford in California, and she does a ton of work with professionals and college students on the power of yet. So saying, I don't know how to do that yet. I've never done that, but I could. but learning to look at challenges and obstacles as an opportunity, learning to not give up easily, but to continue to persist, seeing that there's beauty and worth in the effort and the journey, that it's not just about the destination, but all the steps it took you to get there. That's celebrating those tiny victories. Knowing and discerning useful feedback. So, hearing and looking for people that can speak wisdom into your decisions, looking for those people that have done it before you and what you can learn from them, and then listening to the advice of those professors and faculty and staff members that are going to help you get there, and celebrating the success of others, feeling inspired and empowered that we all have little victories along the way. In contrast to a growth mindset, though, is a fixed mindset. Our fixed mindset tells us that challenges are not good and they are not to be embraced, but avoided, that we need to give up if something happens, like, oh, that just wasn't meant to be. That got in my way. Um, Feeling that the effort isn't worth it if I didn't get the outcome that I wanted. This was my expectation, and this is where I landed, so it wasn't worth the effort. That's what a fixed mindset tells us. Being really critical of others, and then feeling like other successes takes away and diminishes your success. So we see the difference here is a fixed mindset makes it feel like you are fighting alone and that whatever you know right now is all that you're going to know and all that you need to know. But a growth mindset opens us up to some curiosity, to some wonder. It allows us to be in community with others. It allows us to be in conversation with others. And it helps us kind of enter the unknown with a sense of excitement. So, just some things to think about. I'd love to see in the chat maybe some examples of how a growth mindset um, might look like if you're traveling. Like, what might you tell yourself if you're trying to have a growth mindset while you're traveling? Like this one. It's okay if I've never done this before. It will be a learning experience, and I don't have to have everything right now. Absolutely. Know what you absolutely have to succeed, and leaving room for the spirit to move in between. I have not marked all the things off my to-do list yet. That's a great one. There's still time, right? I don't know how to navigate public transportation yet. Absolutely. In some traveling instances, you're going to experience things that are completely new. My hometown did not have public transportation. So anytime I go out of the country, that's a skill that I have to like dust off in the back of my brain. Um, and then if it's a different language, that's multiple skills coming together, right? So definitely some problem solving and some maybe some grace for yourself to know that, hey, I'm not a fluent public transportation traveler. So I might get off at the wrong stop sometime. And what does that look like? I love that. Maybe another one might be I've never tried that food. but I'm willing to. I've never gone there, but I'd love to. I like this one too. Things may take longer because this is new, but I can keep learning until it gets easier. That one's great. Yeah, those are awesome ideas, guys. Great job. Feel free to drop more in the chat if you think about them. But I have one more tool to help you out. So if you're like, Caitlin, I'm already great at growth mindset. That is why I'm here, because I am all about trying new things. Awesome. Excellent. Love it. There's one more skill that I'd love for you to pack with you and take with you. And that's the skill of resiliency. I think this is something that as adults, we can all work on. I think that it's super important, and there's a lot of different ways to work on it. Okay, so resiliency is a tool for anxiety, and it means that we continue to work hard even when the work is hard. We continue to work and progress when it's slow, and we know when to ask for help. So this is going to be really key because if this is your first time in a country, if this is your first time studying abroad, there's a lot of things that you may not know how to do. So, number one, understanding what you do know, what you've already done, and then asking questions too. Say, hey, how did you do that? Hey, when this happened, what was that like? I'd like to go try that too this week. So, being in conversation, being in community is already going to help that resiliency. But this is really, really important for those students who want to do extended stays. So, not just a mini semester, but maybe a whole semester abroad. This is going to be a great tool to have in your toolbox. So there are several different tools and elements that go into resiliency. So resiliency work is not just one thing, but it's actually all of these different elements. So emotional regulation, that's what we've already talked about. Working on that anxiety management and understanding when it's here and understanding why it shows up and how to manage it, and all of our other emotions too. Causal analysis or casual analysis, which is your problem solving. Okay, so if something comes up and you understanding, hey, I think that this is going to be the best solution. So let's say you get to the Daniel house and you realize you forgot to pack all of your socks. Because that's something that Caitlin would do. Let's say that I made a perfect list and I just forgot to add socks to it. So I might get a little frustrated at myself, but my problem solving self is going to say, you know what? I can just go buy socks tomorrow. So that's what your analysis part of yourself will do. What is a big problem? What is a little problem? And what skills and tools do I have to manage both? Okay. Another one is impulse control. Are you an impulsive person? Do you lead with that gut instinct? Do you lead with that first reaction? Or are you doing better to slow down and have an action that you're really proud of and that you think reflects you as a person? Having realistic optimism. So, not just optimism that says every day's a good day, even if it's not, but an understanding that a day is a day. And just because you've had one bad day doesn't mean the whole trip is going to be bad. Letting each day kind of speak for itself. Self-efficacy. So this is your confidence in yourself and your ability to advocate for yourself. So maybe that's with your peers. Maybe that's with the person on the subway that's standing a little too close. I don't know. Maybe that's with a waiter and saying, hey, could you explain this menu to me? Because I don't know what this thing is. All of those are going to be different ways that you show up for yourself and resolve conflict with others. social support. We're going to talk about this in a little bit too. Um, but knowing where your connections are, going ahead and start making those connections and resources now so that you have them in your back pocket when something comes up. Knowing when to call home, knowing when to connect with a friend, making friends where you are, all of these different things. So that's going to be your social network. And then your empathy. So being empathetic with those around you, understanding that it's all tough and that some days are going to be tougher than others, and that we all need grace in the journey. Okay. So some of these y'all are probably already really good at, but I know for myself, there's at least one of these that I could be even better at. So some things to work on in smaller doses is always going to help you in the long run. So for those of you that are interested, this is a little test to measure your own resiliency. Maybe taking just a few minutes here to scan in and see where you are. Hopefully, it's encouraging. Hopefully, you're like, hey, I'm better at this resiliency thing than I thought. Yes. Let me, I see your thing in the chat here. Can someone drop the link in the, thank you, Jordan. Just a quick fun opportunity for you to kind of give yourself just a little check-in. And we'll spend just another minute there. And as y'all work through those different pieces of resiliency, I will give you this word of encouragement as well, that anytime you're working on wellness and your own well-being, it's going to feel really overwhelming to try to do all of those 6 pieces at one time. So what I encourage students to do is to pick one element that you feel like you're already pretty good at and get even better at it, become your own expert in one of those 6 areas of resiliency, and then pick another area that you're not quite comfortable with. So maybe a weaker spot, and just get more comfortable talking about it. Maybe talk about it with others, maybe talk about it with your family, with your roommates, and just be more comfortable talking about it in conversation. And those are 2 ways that you can build your resiliency, and it feels really small, but it's going to have some big impact later. All right. Feel free to keep taking that test if you need to, but we're going to move on as a crew. So here are some group questions, and I would love for you guys maybe to unmute and be a part of this conversation if you want to. But just, or you can continue to interact in the chat if that feels better. So maybe focusing just on this first question, we won't go through all of these, but what does it feel like to ask for help? Maybe in context of traveling, like if you were having an airport day and you had a question, how would that feel to look around and try and find someone to ask for help? And who would you look for? Mm, that's a big one. A worry that I won't trust the right person. If I'm traveling alone, I don't want to ask the wrong person for help. That's super duper fair. I think in general, questions that I look for in traveling is looking for staff people, looking for people with official logos, um, looking for maybe whole family groups or people that look like they're traveling together. Those are always good to ask for. Asking a flight attendant, those kind of things. Yeah. Sometimes it can be nerve-wracking just to be like, gosh, I have to ask somebody. I feel like I should know this, right? That's that growth mindset kicking in. Like, hey, I get to learn something. I don't have to learn everything right now, or I don't have to know everything. Definitely looking for a professor to ask, especially if you're traveling as a group. Sticking with the group is important. Great things. Great things. What about thinking about that connection group? Okay. Who are the people? This one says friends and family as your problem solvers for things. But even looking beyond that, who could be your problem solver? Let's think once you get to your destination. You're halfway through and some new things come up. Definitely. Yeah, language barriers can also be really intimidating. Larry the dog and his owners love it. Anyone else who might be your problem solvers? Yes, absolutely going to your professors, going to your friends, going ahead and making those group chats before so if you get separated that you're able to connect really quickly. Maybe even talking to students who have gone before and hearing their problem solving, what came up that surprised you, having those answers in your back pocket so you're not super caught off guard when it happens to you or if it happens. Definitely. For language barriers, maybe even using a little Google chat, little Google Translate and showing it on your phone. I'm looking for this. Can you help? A lot of times people are happy to help and empathetic to a language barrier. And then this is the last question we'll do on this page, but how do you think asking for help will help you build resiliency? We talked about resiliency being a big thing that you work in little pieces on to build. So how can asking for help help our overall resiliency? That's a very optimistic outlook. I like that one. It will show me that many people are kind and happy to help. I think that's a good reminder. Giving people a chance to surprise you with their hospitality helps me feel confident in myself and others. Yeah. It's those little victories like, hey, I problem solved that. This came up and I had never done it before, but I figured out a solution, even if it wasn't perfect. That lie of perfectionism will want to downplay it if it didn't. work out exactly how we wanted it. But if it worked out, it worked out, right? So leaving space for even us to surprise ourselves in the process. Excellent, friends. All right. These are some things to remember as you enter into those tough conversations, as you begin this problem solving, especially in working with growth mindset, working with resiliency, because it's a growing edge. It's something that you're continuing to get better at. And if you've never done something before, giving your space room to figure it out along the way. So here are some things to remember. How you talk to yourself matters. If you talk down to yourself because you've made a mistake, that's not going to make you feel good. And I tell my small groups and the classes that I talk to a lot, if you're not kind to yourself, then who else is going to be? We hope that everyone we meet is kind, but being kind to ourselves actually helps us be kind to others. So, starting with yourself, setting up our own boundaries around what we can handle. What will it look like for me to ask for help? Going ahead and understanding that. And oftentimes you can replace the word boundaries with expectations. What are my expectations for this travel day? Am I expecting it to go completely as planned with no delays, no mistakes, nothing out of the ordinary? Or am I leaving room for something to get a little off kilter? What are my expectations for this travel abroad? Do I want to make friends? Do I want to go to a specific place? Do I want to try a certain food? Do I want to do well in that class? What are these things looking like? What are your expectations? Going ahead and setting those now and understanding that they may change as you actually get into the place and experience it for the first time. Okay, so providing a starting point. Comparison is the thief of joy. So, really focusing on your own process, on your own journey, on your own study abroad experience, not comparing it to the other stories that you've seen on social media, because some people could just be really talented photographers, but that picture may not show the whole story of what all they experienced while they were there. Okay. So, allowing yourself to be in the moment and to experience it the way it's happening. You are not alone. Just because you're away from our Samford, Maine campus, that doesn't mean there's no resources to help you out. Reach out if you need it. Help each other feel heard. Y'all are in such a unique space, especially if you're traveling in groups, that if something's hard, talk to one another. Maybe they can give you a different perspective, or maybe they can just hear you and say, yeah, that was really awkward. I don't think I want to do that again. Having that space just to process through experiences is really important. When in doubt, connect with your resources. We're going to talk a little bit more about this later, but I talked about building your network here now and connect with them later. Okay. Continuing to send emails, text messages. Um, our Marco Polo is still big. Those are always fun. Sending little videos and letting them answer them later. And then you are not obligated to have all the answers. What we want you to do is have problem solving skills to be able to approach things and try to find an answer, knowing that, hey, I can ask people, I can try something out, I can talk to my roommate. I have all of these things that I can do. And if those things don't work, I'm sure there's someone else with an answer. Okay. So, working on those problem solving skills and knowing that there's folks to help you out as you get stuck in places. Keep All right. Making connections to thrive. These are some of the places you can go ahead and connect with here now. We have Samford Cares. Um, Also, go ahead and start curating that social media feed for yourself, connecting with people and different organizations that are going to help feed good things to you while you're traveling. Plugging into Campus Well, which is our app that has a ton of videos and articles that just speak to the student experience and how you take care of yourself. So making sure that you have all these resources and you know where to find them. Um, Talking to Samford Global, talking to Student Success. All of these different departments on campus are here for you. Okay, so go ahead and make those connections so that while you're over there, if you need to ask a question, it doesn't feel awkward because you've already talked to them. Or so that when you get back, you're able to connect again and say, hey, I'm back and I had so much fun. I'd love to tell you about it. Also, understanding that there's people off campus and that they would also love to continue to support you, pray for you, keep in touch, and knowing who those people are. Any questions? Y'all can feel free to drop those in the chat. So thanks so much, guys. All right. Well, as you process, as you plan, you may continue to have questions. You may continue to think about, hey, what would this look like if this happened or that happened? Um,
Hey, Caitlin, I'm going to jump in because
okay.
Marley asked in the comments one answer, you answer here, but what's the best way to learn more about study abroad and what's the best way to contact Samford Cares if needed? Um, Marley, for study abroad, if you have general questions, the easiest place to start is our website, which is abroad.samford.edu. I'll type it in the chat here. And there's an option on that website to make an appointment with either a peer advisor or with Lauren Molander, who is the Samford Abroad advisor. And peer advisors are fellow students who can kind of guide you through the process. They've either been through it or are in the process right now themselves, and can kind of help you with all your application questions or general questions about what it's like to study abroad. And then Lauren understands a little even more of the academic side of things. If you have questions about um, how coursework fits into things or all those kinds of more technical questions, Lauren is a great resource for that. Or if you have just kind of a niche specific question, she's a great resource as well. You can also always email us abroad@samford.edu. And we share that as an office, so we will pass that to whoever in our office is the best person to answer your question so that you don't chase yourself in circles trying to find an answer and have to send, 40 emails to a million different people. So
Those are great questions, guys. Here's a QR code that should take you to the Samford Cares website. This is also my direct email address if you have any questions for me after today. And then Hannah Newman is our care coordinator, and that's her email address as well. And we're all happy to meet with you, especially if there's problem solving that you'd like to maybe put in your back pocket before you leave. Those are great. We're both great to check in with. And I think that's all we have for now. But thank y'all so much for being here and let us know if you have any questions.
Not only are we here to support you as you prepare for that and are there, but also on the back end as well. So whether it's scheduling pre-departure appointments, appointments while you're abroad, or even on the back end, both Samford Cares and Samford Abroad would be happy to talk through any and all of those things with you.
Definitely.